Hi, it's Trisha here from Equine Energetics with a live Q&A tonight. I asked people to submit some questions in advance, which I'll use to get us started. But if you've got any questions about how animal communication works, how I work, what sort of information I get or how I get my information, and what sort of information you can get from an animal communication session. Any questions, pop them in the comments box and I will do my best to answer for you and enlighten you on what it's all about and how it works. So I'm a horse communicator and healer. I work remotely from a photograph and name. That's all I need. And I make an energetic connection using those two things to connect with your horse and ask its whatever questions you want to ask. So if you want to find out how your horse is feeling, what they think about a certain thing, their likes and dislikes, what's bothering them, we can ask them all those things in an animal communication session. And I also check them out physically and measure their physical health. I check their diet, their tack fit. And I also do a lot of energetic healing, clearing and rebalancing. So kind of slightly woo-woo stuff like clearing past life issues, releasing retained trauma, that sort of thing. Which sounds a bit out there, but in my experience, those things can make a big difference to a horse and really help them to feel better overall. So, any questions, put them in the comments. I'm just checking to see if there's anything new in there. I don't think there are new ones. So I'm going to start with some questions that people submitted up front. So say hello if you're joining me live, and feel free to put any questions at all in the comments box and I'll do my best. This is your chance to ask me anything. Okay, so Cheryl asked me, if I was looking for another horse, do I need to have seen and ridden it before asking you if it was suitable for me? One of the sessions that I offer is a pre-purchase check. That's why she's asking this question. So for me to do a pre-purchase check on a horse for you, do you have to have seen it or ridden it first? The answer is no. It's personal preference, really. Whether you want to, I guess it comes down to how many horses you're looking at. I've had people contact me who had kind of whittled down the horses they were interested in to 4 or 6 horses. And that's a lot if you're going to drive around the country and look at all these different horses. If you weigh up the cost of getting a session done with me, maybe it can help you to narrow it down even more and knock some of those horses off the list and just get down to maybe the top 2 that you're interested in. So that's one option, is to get it done in advance when you're kind of at your short list kind of stage and you want to whittle it down a bit more. Equally, you can wait until you've seen the horse, until you've ridden the horse, and then get me to check in with them as kind of your potentially your final confirmation, if you like. It's possible that I'll come up with things that either confirm something you saw or felt, or something that you hadn't even thought of or didn't come up when you saw the horse. And I would also always recommend that you get a vet check or get your body worker to check the horse out maybe, or even your farrier, or get some recommendations about the owner from friends of friends or whatever. Um, but getting a pre-purchase check from someone like me can just give you another layer of information about the horse and things you might not have thought about. So I check things like, I ask whether that horse is supposed to be with you or not, how suitable that horse is for you, how suitable that horse is for the purpose you have in mind or the discipline that you want to do with it. And all sorts of questions about soundness and preferences, what kind of job it likes doing, all kinds of things. So it's just another way to go through that pre-purchase checklist and be really sure about whether that's the horse for you or not. So short answer for Cheryl is no, it doesn't matter whether you've seen the horse yet or not. I still just need the photo and name. The only thing I can't or don't generally do in a pre-purchase session is any rebalancing. So I can tell you whether the horse's energy is out of balance and whether they need some healing, that sort of thing. But I won't generally do that unless the horse belongs to you. So I hope that answers your question, Cheryl. Let me check if we've got any new questions. Okay, we've got a question from Megan. Megan, it says you're a top fan. Haha. Thank you. Welcome. Megan says, do some horses go on the defence or not want you to communicate with them? That's a really good question. When I was first starting to learn animal communication and kind of practicing a bit more and not as confident about what I was doing, I did get maybe 2 or 3 horses that said no. It was like there was a brick wall between me and them, and they kind of pulled the shutters down, said, I don't want to talk to you, and that was the end of that. And I always listen to that. I'm not going to push past that. I haven't had that since then. Occasionally now, I'll get a horse that is surprised to see me, or even slightly anxious to see me, like, where did you come from? That's a bit weird, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, as long as I ask permission first, and if I feel any kind of resistance, what I do is just offer love, send them lots of love and reassurance about why I'm there, that I'm not going to do anything to them that they don't want me to do, and that I'm there because their owner asked me to chat to them, and that, you know, it's a sign that their owner cares about them and how they're feeling and what they're thinking and wants to know those things. And generally speaking, if there's any concern at all and I explain things like that, they're fine after that. So I hope that answers your question. Good question. Cheryl says, thanks, Trish. Awesome answer. You're welcome, Cheryl. And Megan says, thank you. Cool, you're welcome. So any more questions, pop them in the comments box, and I'll go on to my next saved one, or pre-submitted one. Jill asked, and this ties in a little bit to what I was saying a moment ago. Jill asked me, do you find that animals are surprised that you can communicate with them? Or do they think it's second nature because they communicate energetically with each other? So I would say it's a little bit of both. As I said a moment ago, some of them are surprised and kind of, I get the feeling like, where did you come from? It's like, that's a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. But in terms of the actual communication, I think, yes, it kind of is second nature to them. a sort of related question that I get asked. I've been doing a week of healing this past week for a client of mine in Germany. That's one of the services that I offer for animals that maybe are recovering from surgery, or they've had some sort of illness or injury and need extra healing to help them through that period. And I check in with them twice a day and do any healing and rebalancing that are necessary. And so I've been doing that for this past week with a client in Germany. And one of her comments one of the days to me was, "Oh, I just realised she can speak English." And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I do occasionally get questions around the whole language thing. Well, how come what language do horses speak in? How come he understands English? Or how come you don't have to speak in German to him? That sort of thing. Well, it's exactly what you said, Jill. It's an energetic communication. Yes, while I'm doing the session, I'm thinking it in my head in English, but it's being transmitted energetically. Do they hear it in English? I don't know. Maybe they do. I have no idea. I just accept that it's energetic. They understand me. I hear their answers. It works. So what language it is doesn't seem to matter. Hope that answers your question, Jill. Any more? And then my next pre-submitted question was, and this was quite a good one. We did have a little bit of a conversation about this, but this is good to talk about. Alison asked me, what do you see or pick up when you look at a picture? Do you see what we do not see? And she said, I mean, I just see a picture, but do you see more than a picture? And is it 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions? So the short answer again is that it's just energy. For me, the photo is just a means of me making an energetic connection with that horse, and it helps me to have their name as well. So when I sit down to do my session, I'm thinking about the owner and I have their name in my head. I'm thinking about that picture that I was sent and the animal's name. And those 3 things help me just to make an energetic connection. So it's not that I'm seeing anything in the picture or picking up anything from the photo. People sometimes ask me, what do I need when they're sending me a photo? Oh, do you need to see him sideways on, or does it need to be a recent photo? None of that matters. You could send me a headshot from 2 years ago and that would be enough for me to make that energetic connection. So for me, the way that I work, no, I'm not picking up or seeing anything extra in the actual photo. It's just something that enables me to make an energetic connection. Hope that answers your question, Alison. Any more current questions? None of you people watching? There's a few people watching. Any questions, just put them in the comments. I've got a couple more pre-submitted ones. So this was also from Alison. She said, can you also talk to ants? At which point Shelley jumped in and said, lol, tell the pesky ones here to pee off, please. So, yes, I can. I can talk to all animals, as far as I'm aware. My specialty is horses. but I'm an animal communicator. I can talk to them all. I do get, now I think someone might have asked, this might run into the next question. Rachel asked, I'd also like to know if different species communicate differently. I would think my horse would be more eloquent than my dogs, but maybe it's not like that. So, can I talk to ants, and do different species communicate differently? For me, I hear them all the same. I connect with them all the same. I do get different information from different species. For me, because horses are my specialty, I get way more information from horses than I do from any other species. I get information like how many incarnations they've had, and slightly more woo-woo stuff about horses, which I don't get with other animals. And I get a different feel from different animals. So to me, horses and dogs and cats all feel slightly different, but mammals generally feel kind of the same, just little differences. When I switch from, say, mammals to birds or reptiles, much more different. The best conversation, well, not so much conversation, but connection I ever had with any species was with a snake. That was just the coolest feeling ever. It was very chilled and felt very spiritually mature and wise. Now, that might have been specific to that specific snake, because I haven't done lots of snakes, but that was a very different feeling than what I get with horses or dogs or cats. So they do communicate a little bit differently. They do feel a little bit different energetically, and the information I get from them differs. Coming back to the ants, in case someone's going to ask me to please ask the ants on their kitchen counter to leave and not come back. I'm not sure if that's where this is going, Shelley. It's possible. And I'm happy to do that sort of thing if you want to book a session to get rid of ants. You probably can too. The key with something like that is to not just tell them to pee off, but to explain to them why you don't want them to be there, and that actually they're not supposed to be in the house, and they would probably have a better life or be more welcome somewhere else. So maybe you can try just explaining it to them yourself instead of just getting annoyed with them. Explain it to them. I hope that answers your questions. Let's see if we've got any more. Oh, Megan says, can I communicate with horses that have passed over? I'm laughing because you wrote pasted over. Yeah, sorry, should be passed over. Yes, sorry. I'm sorry to laugh at you. That's such a serious subject. Yes, Megan, I can. I did that just today, actually. Had a very cool session today. I'm sure the person involved won't mind me telling you about it. This lady asked me to connect with a horse. She didn't actually tell me up front that the horse had passed over. But she asked me to connect with it, and she had some questions about did it remember her and had it forgiven her. So I knew from the questions she'd asked that she didn't have this horse anymore, but I didn't know up front that it had passed over. Well, I connected in with it, and the feeling I got from it was very kind of pissed off, not very happy, and didn't want to talk about her, that previous owner. Didn't want to go there, didn't want to tell me what had happened, and said, no, I haven't forgiven her. Oops, thinks I, that's not so great. So I messaged back and said, here's what he said. No, he's not very happy, and he says he hasn't forgiven you and doesn't really want to talk about it. Then she told me what had happened, that he hadn't actually been hers. She had been riding him regularly, and the owners had sold him while she was away at uni or something, and she didn't get any say in it, didn't get a chance to buy him herself, and off he went. And I think he died, a year or so later. And she felt bad about it all this time, years later. So I went back to the horse and explained what had happened. It wasn't her fault. She had no control over it. She really misses you. She's still thinking about you. She still loves you, and she's really sorry. And everything changed. I could feel the energy of the horse changing. He finally understood. He finally had some closure. And it was as if his energy just softened and then floated away. I feel emotional even talking about it. It was beautiful, and I was so grateful that I was able to help both of them resolve something that had been unresolved for a few years, as far as I know, and bring closure to both of them. So yes, I hope that little story helps. Yes, I can speak to horses that have passed over, and it can be really helpful to explain things to them and make sure that they're okay. Hi to Delwyn and Nicola, thank you for joining me. And Cheryl has another question. Feel free to pop your questions in the comments box if you have any questions at all about how this all works, or how I work, what I do, what I can get, what I can't get. Cheryl says, with the clearing work, can trust and or respect be regained between the horse and owner? Yes, Cheryl, I believe so. Obviously, depending what has happened to a horse, they can have habits or, memories around things that have happened to them in the past or been done to them. I have been routinely clearing associations from past life issues and things that have happened in this lifetime. And it can also be really helpful, I find, to explain to the horse in my sessions that, the very fact that your owner has asked me to do this means that they're sorry. They want to know how you're feeling. They care about you. They want to make things right. They want to know what you want. All of that goes a long way. All of that can really help them to just to appreciate that actually their owner is trying to do the right thing. So yeah, I think it really can help. You'd be surprised how many horses I connect with who don't think their opinion is worth anything, don't think their owner wants to know, and don't know that they're loved. So just explaining those things to them can really help them. Yeah, definitely. Cheryl says, gorgeous story. And Megan says, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Welcome to my world. That was a really cool experience today. So any more questions? I don't see any more popping up. I think I've answered all the pre-submitted ones that I had. So if you've got any last questions, pop them in. I'm going to tell you about something that I'm doing next Sunday while I just wait and see if there's any last questions. Next Sunday, I'm running another free webinar, Sunday night, 8 p.m. New Zealand time, which is 6 p.m. Australian Eastern time, like New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland at the moment. 8 p.m. Sunday, and I'm going to be sharing with you some insights and tips for you to think about when in those times where you think, I just know something is wrong with my horse, and for the life of me I can't figure out what it is. And if there's anyone watching who doesn't have a horse and you have an animal, a dog or a cat or whatever other animal where you have those thoughts sometime, you're welcome to come along to the webinar too. Same things apply for all animals, all pets. You know, we do our best. I think anyone who would even look at a live video like this or come and ask questions or be at all curious about the way someone like me works is someone who cares about their animals and who is trying to do the best they can and develop a closer connection, deeper relationship with their animals. Excuse me. But try as we might, sometimes we check off everything. You know, we check their teeth, their feet, we check their saddle. We get the body worker to come and do a session, we check everything and still something's not quite right. Maybe your body worker can't even figure out what's going on. I've had instances where even vets have said, can't find anything wrong with your horse. So I'm going to be sharing with you what's really wrong with your horse. So if you're curious about that, I'll put the link in the comments. And come along if you want to ask your questions live. And I see that there's a question from Jenny saying, if I'm not available for the webinar next weekend, can I watch it all at a later time? Absolutely. Everyone who registers or signs up for it receives the recording the next day. So you can either be there live on the night and ask questions live and be in with a chance to win a free session with me. But if you can't make it live, you will receive the recording the next day. And it stays up for about a week. So I would love to see you there. Come along and I'll share lots more information with you and you can ask more questions. Andy says, how much would it cost to have you communicate with my troubled horse? So a full initial session, Andy, is $99 New Zealand dollars. I'm not sure what that is in Australian right now. I'm not sure where you are. Oh, Christchurch. Okay, so 99 New Zealand dollars. And that's a full checkup. I really pack a lot into it. You get a lot of information. You get a full report on what's going on with your horse and anything you need to change or anything they particularly want, don't want. You'll get everything. Couple of things that I've been putting in my, well, something I've been putting in my sessions for a little while now that is sort of flavour of the month, if you like, is checking whether horses have ulcers or not. And how serious they, or mild or serious they are, and whether anything needs to be done. And then just this past week, I've been adding in for geldings, checking whether they have a gelding scar and how much it's affecting them, and doing some healing around that. You might have seen the survey that I did last week around gelding scars, and I'm doing some case studies on that now. That triggered quite a few things for owners and for me, and so I'm doing some case studies on that to see if it's something I can help horses with remotely. So yeah, hope that helps. Hope that answers your question, Andy. Um, Delwyn says, I would love you to do a communication so I can see you and talk rather than communicating via email. Is that possible? um, Oh, and Andy says, what sort of information would you need to know from me beforehand? All I need is the photo and name, Andy. You don't have to tell me anything up front if you don't want to. I quite like working blind because then I have no preconceived ideas about what I should be finding. So you don't have to tell me anything up front. It can be quite interesting to do it that way. It lets you know that I'm not just picking up stuff from what you said, you know, because maybe I'll come up with something and you'll say, oh, I didn't tell her that. How could she possibly know that? Gives you some confirmation. And then once I've done that session, it might answer your questions, it might not. You may have extra questions. You can come back and ask me more questions afterwards, and we can look more specifically at what's going on if that didn't come up in the session. I hope that's clear. So Delwyn, I get asked every now and then if I will or why I don't do my sessions like this. Do them over Messenger or Skype or Zoom or something, and you know, do them live. And up until now, the only live sessions I've done have either been people that brought horses to me, or when I used to be traveling and teaching, I would do it with the horse there live. Or more recently, the only live ones I've done have been at spiritual fairs where, you know, the owner will come and just show me a photo of their animal on their phone and I'll sit and do it with them face to face. But those tend to be kind of mini sessions, only 20 minutes. But I do get asked every now and then. And so when I did something recently, I can't remember what it was, and there was a prize. Somebody won a prize of a session with me, and I said, oh, the only condition of this prize is that we're going to do it live and record it. And so I did do that, and it went really well, and I think she was really happy with it, and we, you know, it was all the same information that I do remotely, but we did it live, and I recorded it. But here's the thing, for me, it's all about me, Delwyn. For me, when I do it that way, it's harder. It takes longer, so it's possibly, you could argue, better value for money for you, not so good value for money for me because it's taking more of my time. And yeah, it was an interesting experiment to do that one that way and record it. And afterwards I just went, oh, I'm glad I don't do that all the time. I found it quite exhausting, actually. So I'm aware that occasionally, you know, there are people that would prefer that. I'm not totally against the idea, but I probably would charge extra, I have to say, because it took a lot more out of me. So I hope that helps. I actually find it easier to do it completely remotely and just send the messages. I tell you what we could do, Delwyn. The possible answer is I do the session just the same, but then we get together over Messenger or whatever just to do the sort of supplementary questions and quick, final sort of check-ins. I don't mind doing that, but the main session I prefer to do remotely. Hope that helps. Let me know if you do want to do that sometime. Any more? Cheryl, from what you said before, can you ask what they would be happy doing, i.e. dressage, hacking, etc., and would they prefer to be in another home? Yeah, I ask those sorts of questions regularly, Cheryl. Usually only if the owner asks, or if it's really obvious to me when I'm doing the session that the horse isn't happy, because the question that I do ask every time is, do you like your job? I just put it as kind of generally as that. Do you like your job? Yes or no? And so if they say no, I really don't like my job, then I'll start asking, well, what would you rather be doing? But yeah, for owners, if you want to know, does your horse like its job, or would it rather be, jumping or riding on the beach, or would it rather have a different owner, be living somewhere else? Absolutely, I can ask all those questions. Oh, Andy says, yes, I suspect she may have an ulcer as she was a totally different horse before I got her. Well, yeah, it's possible then. One easy thing you could do, Andy, if you're not, I don't know if you're doing anything about that or not, is I know there are lots of ulcer meds and things that you can give them, but an easy one you can get kind of over the counter at your tack store or whatever would be slippery elm. Just start on that, can't do any harm, and see if that helps or not. But it is something that I address in sessions. And then Andy says, photo of her before I got her or now. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter. It can be just a headshot, as I said before, I'm not reading what I'm seeing in the photo. I'm making an energetic connection with that horse as it is now. So the photo itself, the age of the photo doesn't matter. Delwyn says that sounds perfect. Oh, good. Yes, I'm glad I worked that out in my brain. That's an okay option. We could do that. And Cheryl says he will love his job because he isn't doing much. Haha. Yeah. Occasionally, I've said to people, he doesn't really know what his job is. I asked him if he liked his job, and he said, "Do I have a job?" And I'll say this back to the owner, and the owner says, yeah, that's because he's just sitting in the paddock doing nothing. I'm not surprised he doesn't know he's got a job. So, yeah. Andy says, brilliant, thanks. I'm definitely going to get you to speak to her. Great, yep, you're welcome. There's a link on my page somewhere, or I'll put one in the comments afterwards that you can use, so you can find it easily. Okay, any more questions? Going once, going twice. So thanks for joining me. It was great to see so many of you here, and I'm really happy to answer your questions. So anytime I do one of these, just jump on in and ask your questions. There are no stupid questions, and I realise it can be a bit of a strange subject if it's something you haven't experienced before. So you're always welcome to ask. And I hope some of you can join me next Sunday for the webinar to find out more about what's wrong with your horse, or what's really wrong with your horse, because I'll be sharing heaps more information, and I'll put the link in the comments once we're finished here. Oh, we've got a last question. Hilary, hi Hilary. Did you suggest slippery elm? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Any more? Oh yeah, everyone's saying yes, you did. Yeah. Thank you for answering. And the webinar is 8 p.m. New Zealand time next Sunday. the 14th of July. And when you sign up, you'll get the link and you'll get reminders for it and whatnot, and you'll get the recording the next day. So, thanks for joining me. That's been fun. And I'll see you again next Sunday, I hope. Until next time, keep connecting with your horses.